formatted the talk tonight, Resting in the Eye of the Storm. It's really, I'm intending it to be quite a discussion. In fact, I start with a question as well. And if you have any questions as we go, feel free, raise your hand or just shout it out. That's good. Some people feel rather shy to pose questions, but just know that there might be somebody else here who has a similar question and they might be feeling shy, or I post these on my YouTube channel and then on my website, and there may be viewers there who might need to hear that question and hear the answer as well. So consider, when you ask a question, you can consider it an act of generosity, right? That you're giving the question out to the situation, to the room, to the audience, wherever they may be. So maybe in the spirit of Thanksgiving, you give a question. But as I just mentioned, I'm going to start with a question for you all. You can go around the room, or you can just pop out and answer. But you all are here, and I'm guessing you knew the title of the talk, Resting in the Eye of the Storm. So I just want to hear what that phrase brings up for you when you hear that phrase. What does resting in the eye of the storm mean for you? We can just go around the room.
Being calm in a stressful situation.
Being calm amidst whatever stresses you have, like each day.
Yeah, from the day-to-day life.
For me, how it registers is looking through the more chaotic parts of yourself and being comfortable with it.
So yeah, so seeing it more from an internal rather than an external.
For me, it's when there's crisis situation, and in the past, I've surprised myself with remaining calm. So I tend to, or in the past, I used to get a little bit unquiet or irritated with small things. But then when there's something big, then I'm the one who's keeping my cool. So it's interesting.
Yeah, it can happen that way.
Yeah.
Because sometimes the big storms require us to be more present. We know if we have those skills, we know that's like it's almost like a meditation valve. It's like, oh, right. But then the little things, they don't have that effect because they're so small. They, like the mosquito, it's just that irritating. Yeah. So, yeah.
I thought of the title on the way here, sitting next to about the traffic, thinking that I need to rest in the eye of the storm. And then immediately the question popped up, but this is not a storm, but it is a storm. And I was thinking, I wonder if I will get closer to what exactly is the forms that storms take. Because I suddenly realized that it doesn't necessarily have to be the typical stuff that I associate with a storm. It could be a bunch of cars that's on the road.
Yeah.
So I want to answer your question with a question. So I'll define what is the storm.
I'll get to that.
but then it's actually in me. I try to hide, but then it's actually really there. I deny it.
It's our nature.
Yeah.
It's our nature.
Yeah.
So for you, the storms are very internal.
Eternal.
Right? Yeah. It sounds like there's some searching going on too. Good. There was a lot brought up there. A short period of time. The storm, come on in. Hi, yay. Want to grab a cushion?
Chair
Oh, is there another chair? Oh, wait.
or stool or chair? Hi, Stella. Hi, sorry.
No, it's okay. Glad you made it. So we were just sharing our concept of what the phrase means, resting in the eye of the storm. So it seems like maybe might be a good chance. You have any idea? As you
My
catch your breath, catch your breath. Because it seems like you just came in from a storm,
Exactly.
so that's why I was.
Yeah.
That's what I was thinking.
And I'm already relaxed. I'm already ready.
Yeah.
It's just be. I think just to understand yourself more. You know, it's like I think I learned it in the past years. Just things happens and just be there. And you know, don't have enough English time to explain
Sure.
maybe, but it's just be there.
Just be present.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
Sorry to hit you with that right out of the storm. Good. So, well, the question was raised: how are we defining storm? Well, storm in this instance, it could be it's anything that brings up a reaction in us. So an emotional reaction could be anger, could be sadness, could be laughter, or it could be joy, but an emotional type of joy. Could be envy, jealousy, those types of things. Those storms that we experience. They could be small or large, but it's really, and hopefully after the end of this evening, it'll be clear that we dictate the size of the storm ourselves.
Do what?
We dictate the size of the storm. We're both the meteorologists and the clouds. So, that knowledge is a very powerful tool, very, very wonderful tool. You can experience that. So it was interesting here, as we were going around the circle, there were some comments about external storms and some comments that are internal storms. And in reality, there's no difference. It's the same. It's the same storm. Oftentimes and this isn't a bad thing, it's human nature. When we experience something externally like the traffic, and when we have that reaction that comes up, we immediately justify it by, oh, this is how everyone would feel. This is normal to feel this way. Or some justifications happen, allowing us or justifying our emotion, our reactive pattern. But we know that that's not really true. We know there are people who are very calm in certain situations and other people who react very emotionally in situations. And the other people who are very calm in certain situations get very emotionally reactive and so forth. So there's no external force that has its that has its own weight. We give weight to every situation, everything that arises. And it's very simple to see even in the sensation of color, for example. Right? We see this world, this rainbow world of color. But those colors are dependent on the rods and cones in our eyes. Right? Other animals that have no rods or cones in the eyes, they see black and white. There are other animals, like a chameleon, that have eyes that swivel on two different axes. Their world is totally different. So even the experience of something that we take for granted every day, like the experience of color, it's contingent on the experience of it. So there's no experience that has its own, that is separate from the experience. Like that. And you can touch a table and it feels hard, but it's only hard in comparison to soft skin it's touching. It's the same with any kind of emotional experience that we have. It's only emotional because of the one who's experiencing it. So we choose unconsciously most of the time to give those experiences the weight that they have. So when we can learn to rest through the technique of meditation is my preferred choice. I guess you could have a couple of martinis, but that's not really resting. That's just avoiding, you know. But learning to really experience what's arising and then rest in that. Not pushing away any challenging emotions that may be there. Not justifying them either, but just letting them be there, not clinging to them or pushing them away, just allowing the emotions to arise. When challenging emotions come up, like anger or sadness, those are the two that I generally like to call out in the talk because they're so vivid and most people can relate to those. When anger or sadness or fear or desperation or envy or jealousy, all of those powerful emotions that we don't want to experience as human beings, but they're a part of the human experience. And so when we push those away, we're denying our birthright. And it's actually, when you can rest in all of that, it's like flying a jet plane. You can see the entire landscape, the emotional landscape. And none of it's bad, none of it's good, it's just a beautiful landscape. It might have rain, it might have sun, it might be ice, it might be green trees. But it's all part of the human landscape. So that's what we're going to try to experience this evening in this resting practice. There's the poet Rumi, he's one of my favorites. He wrote, our task is not to find love, but it's to find the barriers which stop us from experiencing love.
What's his name again?
Rumi? Yeah, Sufi poet. Yeah, beautiful poetry. Now, the love there that he's talking about is not a romantic love, although it very well could be. But he's more referring to the love as the heart of creation, the love that gives birth to the manifest world, or to our experiences. The love that's underneath the world, gave birth to. And so that's available to us all the time, and it's very powerful. But we choose not to experience it through emotional reactivity. So if we can just embrace the human experience as it arises moment to moment, that allows us to feel that powerful experience of love. So we're going to take a dive into that in a while. So resting. So in this practice we rest very deeply. We're going resting, we did some of this on the retreat. Some of it might sound familiar. Resting so that we can experience everything, as I mentioned. Experience everything that arises with equanimity, that allowing. When we can rest that deeply, it's like a diver going to the bottom of the ocean. The turbulent waves up above, that might be our emotional material, or our whatever, the traffic outside, the sound of the car horns, the sound of the air conditioning, maybe people walking outside. That's all waves on the top of the water. When we rest deeply, we can rest at the bottom, we can look up at the turbulent waves and admire them and notice them and experience them. But they don't move us out of that flow of the ocean, we just rest. So, let me see here if I can, I'll just use my hand. So, the way we typically rest is like we're resting like this. You know, and we do that for a reason. It's because throughout our life we've had certain experiences, maybe an accident, maybe a fight that we had, but something that injured us physically. So as a result of that injury, we learn to hold our body in a certain way so that we don't have to experience that hurt, the physical pain of whatever that is. So we hold our body maybe it doesn't have to be extreme, but just in a way that is not quite comfortable initially, but because we do it for week after week after week until we recover, it becomes a habit. And so that sounds familiar, right? Yeah, sure. Most people. Yeah, go
I
ahead.
have scoliosis. My curvature turns here. So growing up, I thought that if I slept on this side, the curvature would straighten out. So I've always slept.
It's a great example. Great example, yeah. It's like the sand that gets in the shell of an oyster, you know, slowly hardens into a pearl. We carry all of these pearls in our body, you know, similar to the oyster. It comes from, I'm just talking about the physical aspect now, we'll get to the other aspects later, but that's a great example. Also, do you know the actor Clint Eastwood? You know, his famous squint?
Oh,
You
yeah.
know, that clearly probably started when he was a teenager, you know, being out in the sun all the time. But now it became his signature squint. Everybody, you say Clint Eastwood, they think that, you know. And that's another, he's carrying that habitual tension in the face. You know, I don't know if it's real or not, but it's a really clear way of seeing how the human body starts to habitually hold in tensions as a way of avoiding. He was avoiding the sun or standing. And so this avoidance becomes a habit. Like that. But then we also do that with emotions. We carry emotions in our body. Fear, anger, sadness, those kind of heavy emotions that we don't want to feel. Every time we have an experience that brings that up, if we don't feel it, we put it in the body. And if you know that that's happening with you, if you overreact to something, any type of overreaction means it's resonated an emotion from the past. So if you overreact, if something like a sad song comes on and you just start crying for an hour, that's an extreme example, but then or not. But you know, then there's some sadness there that you're holding in your body, in your heart somewhere, and wherever you're holding it in the body. So there's a resonance there from a past wound. So
Could this also be avoiding specific postures?
yeah.
Because I had the same thing, and I never look over this shoulder. It doesn't feel comfortable. So even if something is behind me in a car, I will try all the way over the shoulder, but never over this one. They like that.
It's our nature to do what's easiest. As
So
as the
avoidance
water
is exactly
goes through
the same thing. avoiding something is exactly
Yeah.
the same thing as
Sure.
repeating something.
Sure. Oh yeah, sure. It becomes a habit. Avoidance becomes a habit. Constantly pushing away the discomfort and grasping at comfort. Yeah. Unconscious motion. So with this practice, we start to learn to be comfortable with everything. That's, if you can imagine that. Actually, you can imagine that. Imagine just for a moment. Imagine now, as I'm sitting here, imagine what it would feel like if you could rest in any situation. It was just this peaceful rest in your body, in your heart, in your mind, whatever arose. Imagine what that might feel like. What do you think? What would that? It's hard to imagine. Yeah.
It's constantly something coming up that's
But what would it feel like if you could? What do you think? What would be the result of that? Just a thought experiment.
It's like heaven,
Like
paradise. Yeah.
Yeah.
Some, yeah. Perhaps that's heaven. Yeah.
Anyone else?
I think for me, if we ever get to rest despite everything, it would equate to being comfortable in any situation, basically. So, because you're resting, you're also just accepting everything that happens, and that's comfortable. So if people ridicule you for something, you're not putting in any kind of reaction because you're resting in that as well. Like sitting through that, it's challenging, but it's also like, I feel like if you achieve, it's like, yeah, I'm comfortable.
Yeah. Good. I like that. Yeah.
That's how I see it.
Ah, good. There's no wrong answer. Just sharing what that might look like.
I'm not sure how I feel about if like a constant state of rest, because I equate it with being passive, and I think that I might get bored. I don't know. It's hard for me to imagine always being rested, or sometimes you appreciate one thing, like you said, because of the contrast. Like you would never appreciate brightness if you don't know what darkness is. So I don't know if rest, a constant state of rest, would be something that I'd fully enjoy if I didn't have some sort of challenge or stress
Right.
in there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. I want to talk about that
Mhm.
if I may, unless somebody else wants to share.
I relate to that.
Yeah, sure.
The constant, when you say what is that complete rest feels like, the word that to me came to mind is empty. So it's just blank.
Okay, good. Good. So, resting in this way doesn't mean going with the flow. It means being at rest with whatever arises, which means meeting the present moment completely. So we're not trying to step out of challenges, but we move towards the challenge in a restful way. So the challenge then becomes more of a challenge and less of an obstacle, right? So now we have more energy actually. We're in a resting state. We have more energy to put into that challenge. Because now we're in the present moment rather than, oh my God, I can't believe this is happening to me, or this should be different. No, we've taken that component away. So now we're resting, and we can move forward from that resting state.
So it's more like contentment in that sense.
Yeah, contentment's a good quality that comes from that resting state. Yeah. Yeah. Does that answer your? Yeah, because a lot of people confuse this resting with going with the flow.
Because I remember this sort of case we discussed in school before, because I took up psychology, and it was an experiment with mice. And the mice was only presented with a neutral stimulus, meaning if it pressed or if it reacted to the stimulus, it wouldn't get anything.
Mm-hmm.
And a negative stimulus, where if it reacted to this, it would get shocked. And in theory, you would think that the mice would go for nothing, but the mice would rather have a bad reaction than nothing.
And no reaction.
Yeah, so I think that's very resonant of human nature, that if we don't have anything going on with our life, we tend to create drama or something to keep us busy, because I guess it's because we don't accept the resting state that.
That's true.
In that context that you're saying.
That's true. Actually, I think that's very accurate. Yeah, no, in this practice, actually life becomes much more rich and full, because now we're not denying ourselves anything. We're resting in whatever is there. And so action is much more effective, because we're not using as much energy in that action. And we're able to meet whatever's arising without our emotional projection. It's very good. That's a very good question. I heard my teacher give a talk on resting. And someone brought that in question. He made the comment, this isn't going with the flow. He says, even dead fish go with the flow. He said, this isn't about being a dead fish. It's about meeting the present moment, whatever arises in the present moment, which is actually very challenging sometimes, often.
Actually, for me, I find that resting is going with the flow, but not in the sense of indulging a toxic situation, but in the sense of acting from a place of groundedness and quiet, rather than a place of reacting subconsciously because of previous trauma. So I'm thinking particularly to, Chris and I had a session earlier, and during the session, I brought to mind a challenging situation, very recent, and I told you, like, instead of sitting with that strong emotion, it actually replayed without me having that resistance. Because when it happened, the challenging situation happened, I was resisting the emotion that was coming at me. Well, it was coming from inside, but I was resisting what was coming at me, and so it was really tiring. And then when it replayed, I just sat with it, and then I felt like I was resting and going with the flow, but yeah, I didn't think it was, I thought it was very, just better. Less tiring, and the outcome was, I didn't drag it on with me. I left it there. I was able to leave the space and leave that situation there. But I feel like I was going with the flow. I went with the energy of that situation instead of creating more resistance.
But I think maybe for you that is going with the flow, and that's great. But generally, I think human habit of going with the flow is doing what our habitual reactions have always done. For me, that's going with the flow.
Because my habitual reaction would have been to fight it.
Right, and I think that's because indulging our habitual reactions is what we want to do naturally. That's more of, for me, going with the flow of the river of life, of the way our human life is. We naturally, because that's what our habit is. That's what we've always done in the past, and so that's what feels right to us. You know, if I get angry, and my typical reaction of getting angry is yelling and slamming a door, then the next time I get angry, I'll probably yell and slam a door. And that is going with the flow.
So I have a different
So this, what this actually, the Buddha used a great term. Don't mean to bring up any religion here, but just speaking as a person, as a meditation teacher. I mean the Buddha as a meditation teacher, not as a Buddhist. So the Buddha used the phrase "going against the stream," and for me, that's what this practice is really doing. It's allowing us to go against the stream, to rest, while that stream of habitual reaction flows over us, and not to get swept by it, but just to allow those currents to go, and just to rest with those currents. And because when we can do that, we create new habits, we create new fun. So then eventually I'm not yelling and slamming the door, but I might just go take a walk. And then maybe a couple of years after that, after some practice, maybe I'll actually sit down and have a conversation with that person and ask them, why they did this, and so forth. So it's like that. So the current changes as we go against that stream. It changes, but it's very much an active state of rest. You know what I mean? It's not going with the flow. To me, feels like just numbing out, doing what I've always done in the past.
The mice, if they were good meditating mice, would they still go for that stimuli, but just feel different about it? Or would they not go for that anymore?
I'm not a mouse.
In the way that it's speaking. Because you'll still get angry, right? It's just
Anger
a
still
different-
arises, but to be able to rest, of course. We're not going to give ourselves a spiritual lobotomy tonight. So all of the emotions will be there, and they'll be there actually much more vivid, but they'll bother us less, because there'll be this quality of rest while they arise. So we no longer get swept away by the sensations of anger. Because anger and every other emotion has a corresponding sensation in the body. In fact, the sensation in the body, well, first there's a stimulus from the environment, whatever that stimulus is. Right? It could be traffic. Let's use the example of traffic. So prevalent in Cebu, right? So you're sitting in traffic and you start to feel angry. Well, that's the emotional. That's the stimulus, the external stimulus. It brings, that stimulus comes with a feeling tone in our body. We interpret that feeling tone as either with attraction, we either like this feeling, aversion, we hate this feeling, or indifference, we don't care about this feeling. So it's stimulus, feeling, interpretation of that feeling, reaction to that interpretation. We react by punching the steering wheel, honking the horn, flipping the finger, yelling, or we react by turning on the radio and dancing, or maybe meditating, while you're sitting in the traffic, maybe just following your breath, allowing your mind to be quiet, or we react with total indifference. We just sit there and kind of just numb out, just watch people. So those are the typical ways this reactive chain works. But with practice, we start to recognize that there's a space between each of those stages. So initially, when people start this type of practice, the stimulus happens, the traffic is there, the feeling tone happens, we interpret that feeling tone as maybe with aversion. But then we recognize that just because we feel aversion, we don't have to get angry. We don't have to react to that feeling of aversion. We can allow that aversion to arise, and it passes. Just like everything else in the universe, it arises and passes. Right? So then, with a little more practice, this is how this practice works. This is how it unfolds. Guaranteed. This is how it. If you do this practice consistently, these are the results of this practice. We can talk about result versus method after, because that's another good topic. So then a little more practice, maybe however long, 6 months, a year, consistent practice, you're sitting in traffic. And it happens gradually. All of a sudden you're like, oh yeah, this is that. You know, it's not like it happens boom, and boom, you're in the next stage. You know? It's a kind of a gradual unfolding. So the stimulus of the traffic is there. You feel the aversion in your body. But now you recognize there's a space between the feeling tone and your reaction. I'm getting a little confused, a little ahead of myself. So the traffic is there, the feeling tone arises. But now we don't have to feel adverse to that body sensation. Right? We know it's just a sensation in the body. So we can just feel that sensation arise through the body, which is why we emphasize body scanning so deeply. So that now we know that it's just another sensation, just like any other itch, any other pain, any other ache in the body. It's just another vibration moving through the body. We can let it go, we can see it, and let it pass. So that happens after some time in practice. Now, more practice happens, however long. You know, a consistent meditation, resting practice, like the one you do. You're in the traffic, but then aversion starts to come into your body, and you remind yourself, oh, I don't have to be averse to this. It's just another external situation that's bringing this feeling. I can see it in a different light. So that's where you can rest in that. And just allow the traffic just to be the traffic. It doesn't have to be anything at all. So that's where the resting practice really, that's how it evolves. Now I mentioned method versus results. It's good to know the results that you can expect from a practice sometimes, because maybe this isn't the type of practice you're looking for. Maybe you want to hold on to these reactions for whatever reason, and you want to do some different type of practice, maybe visualization practice, or practice that cultivates other aspects. They're out there. There's hundreds of different practices. But this practice is designed specifically to allow us to rest in our emotional reactivity. That's the storm. So we don't want to try to live up to this ideal of being non-reactive, because then we're just repressing our emotions. So that's not a good idea either. The idea is to be able to rest with the current of emotions. So we don't want to go out into the traffic and be like, oh, I shouldn't feel this way now because I'm doing this practice. You know, no. The idea is just to allow the practice to take hold and the results to unfold as they do. That's important.
It's like if you can explain it's like logical, yeah, but it's like if you cannot avoid the traffic, yes. So this is the situation, this is the present. You cannot control it. So why be angry? Yeah, it's something that you cannot. And so the other way that you can control it. You can decide to go early, yeah, or to choose another road, yeah. So, but if you cannot, like you can try, yeah. But if you cannot, so just trust the situation. Okay, you are here. This is traffic. This is you. And if you complain, you can raise some dirty word or something. It's okay. Okay, it's also rest for yourself. No, just at this moment, it's like I can be angry. It's okay if somebody very stupid. It's okay to be like again. It's not just avoid feelings at all, but it's also to be present in the situation. And if you are angry, so you're angry, but also rest yourself. Okay.
Yeah.
It's just like you can show that you're angry, but actually you are very stable. You can, like if you around the people, yeah, and they're like in the traffic, if you're going about the traffic. So if everyone is like in Israel, yeah, everyone is like no, you cannot it's like it's crazy there. You drive there, it's just crazy, and you cannot be just silly one, like just I'm present here and I'm not doing nothing and I'm so relaxed. No, you should also do the same thing,
Because if you notice, they will just push you from the road. This is the rules. This is the rules of the life. So sometimes you just need to behave like.
Sure.
Yeah, but it doesn't mean that it's like affect you from.
You can rest and be assertive at the same time. I think a lot of people have trouble with that. You can and it's necessary. Absolutely, it's necessary. And the thing is when you are at rest and assertive at the same time, that assertiveness is much more effective. Because oftentimes, at least for myself, when I need to be assertive, but I can maintain that resting quality, my voice gets very quiet, and I know that I can feel the power coming from that resting space, and the other people can feel it too. And and I find that's a much more effective way of expressing those emotions without causing suffering. And that's really one of the key points of any meditation practice in my book, is that we want to alleviate suffering for ourselves and others. And so while assertiveness is called for, we don't need to hurt people. We don't need to cause them any type of irritation and anger. I think that's really important, and I think that's one of the real benefits of being able to rest. Because then emotional reactivity often does cause suffering for others and ourselves. I think arguably it's probably the most cause of suffering. So that's taken out of the equation when we can rest, because now we've unplugged our emotional reactivity. We just respond to the present moment appropriately, whether it's being assertive or being quiet. Good.
Contrary to how I was raised or how we were brought up in society. So
Yeah.
never keep anything in. Just rather let it out in that moment what will hold you.
Well, that's true.
I've developed this sarcastic clap for someone that does something stupid in traffic.
Right. Well, that's fine, because they probably don't know what that means, and you're allowing that emotion to come out, and that is unplugging from suffering. That is just unplugging and allowing yourself to experience that.
Isn't there an element of that we could communicate some of it to the rest of the world? You want to share how you feel at a very level.
Okay, but
But I'm not sure how that ties in with everything.
so that's the way that's your habit. That's your karma. That's the way you've learned to deal with those feelings. So that's fine. It doesn't seem like you're causing suffering for yourself or for others when you clap. Maybe you are. I don't know how irritating it is. But now the idea is to rest in that experience and bring mindfulness to that decision, because it sounds like it's automatic.
It's really silly, actually.
It's fine. We all do silly things. There's nothing wrong with that. But to have mindfulness to that decision, say, okay, this is my way of experiencing this. You're right. We don't want to repress anything. I'm very anti-repression. I think the human experience is rich and full, and we're given this gift. Again, in Buddhism, it's called the precious human body. Precious human body. We're born in this precious human body, and it's so vast and wide. We should honor and revel in the experience of being human. Because next time around, we may be a fraud. Who knows? If you believe in that kind of thing, and if you don't, then there is no next time. So really, you should really experience it now. But the idea again is coming back to that not causing suffering for ourselves and for others. We cause suffering for ourselves when we repress, because we're allowing the body to be sick with that energy, or allowing that resonance, that emotional resonance, which takes us way out of the present moment. It's very difficult to respond to the present moment when we have that emotional resonance happening. So that takes us away, and then we react outwardly, maybe cause suffering to others. So this resting can help us alleviate.
I just wanted to address the need for sharing when you have a stimulus. When you work with energy, it's also, emotion is a form of energy, and then it needs to be evacuated. So you express it by doing this or whatever, but there's so many ways to evacuate that energy, and there are harmful ways and there are non-harmful ways. That's why, so Reiki is just one example of allowing that energy to pass through in a non-harmful way, because it has to go somewhere.
Yeah.
And like Chris said, if you repress it, it becomes physical illness. It crystallizes, it manifests. So I agree. I'm also, you really have to evacuate it, not repress it. The trick is what works for you, which is why, study and practice is important, so you find what works for you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Very good. Yeah.
So meditation is one avenue where you can release, depending on your meditation.
Right.
And Reiki is one, exercise, obviously yoga is breath work. All of these are, even, that's why art therapy, right? Lynn does art therapy, that's also letting stuff shift and old stuff, stuck stuff move out. Writing, exactly. Creative stuff, so it's sublimating the energy, or I don't know what word. Transmuting
Transmuting,
it.
that's a good word. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so I think it starts again with that mindfulness, because our habitual reactions are so ingrained. It's again, it comes from I think everyone here has been with me before. In a meditation, we've talked about that pushing away at discomfort and grasping at comfort, that motion. And we do that out of habit. And the method we use for that pushing away and grasping is a habit. They're all habitual. So that might be a very fine way of dealing with it. It might be a way that's not harmful to yourself or others, luckily. But it's happening unconsciously. And so by bringing an awareness or a mindfulness to that motion, it's a way of bringing mindfulness to the other ways we do that habit, and maybe other harmful ways.
Just one more thing, can I comment just about the mice? And so, because drama and stress is addictive, so we're all addicted to strong sensations. That's why there are horror movies, that's why there are race car drivers and so on. So we all have our own addiction, so that stimulus could be something else, like stressful situation, or alcohol, or toxic relationship, or it could be any of that, because it's that strong sensation fills in the void that can only either be filled in with, because their energy can't be empty. So either we fill it in with something like stress because it's so strong, or we fill it in with consciousness, mindfulness, or other. So you just choose what you fill that void in.
I think, yeah, exactly.
Not very well said, but.
Well, the mindfulness thing, I think, allows us to see both sides. I think that's what the power of it. It allows us to be aware, move with awareness. And I've come to the title of my next book, by the way. It's going to be Heartfulness.
Heartfulness.
Heartfulness, as opposed to mindfulness. Because in Tibetan, there's no difference between the word mind and heart. It's the same word.
Blows my mind.
Yeah.
That just blows my mind, because there's such a. I always talk about the mind and heart separation.
Yeah.
Because it's so ingrained in the West.
I know.
So it just blows my mind that they have one word for both. So in school we don't learn to work, right? We're
Yeah, I
just
mean-
here developing our intellectual acumen, learning, accumulating useless stuff. We never talk about developing this heart center. So that's the purpose of the center. It's shifting that energy from here to here. So it's
Yeah.
really,
Yeah. And imagine what life would be like if instead of putting your mind on something, you put your heart on something. How different, what a different quality it would be. Yeah, it's a beautiful thing. I'm sorry.
No, I just remembered Arch, one of his calligraphy, he did heart, but in Japanese heart, the calligraphy for heart also meant the mind. It's the same.
So now that I've built up this resting practice, should we do some? Are you ready to jump in the water? We're going to do a resting meditation. This will be familiar for you too, for sure. So, as I was saying before, some of us, a lot of people rest like this. It's due to, we're not exactly resting, right? We're kind of, my hand is resting on the leg, right? But it's still holding something, still balled up. My hand, not allowing my hand to feel the skin against the leg. So I'm only really feeling a bit. You can think of the leg as maybe the present moment. So here I'm just feeling a very sliver of the present moment, right, my leg. That's, I think, the way most people rest. Kind of whatever it is they're hiding, or they're holding some physical pain back, or holding themselves back from an emotional pain, or holding their heart back from some sort of fear, something like that, which ties in with emotion, but I just want to bring the heart into the conversation. So then, with a little practice, we learn to rest a little more. And some people rest like that naturally. Maybe they've done some work in the past, yoga, things like that. And then, feeling more of the present moment, but not all of the present moment. Then tonight in this practice, what we really want to do is allow ourselves to feel, to become unwound, to really feel everything that's arising in the present. Now, you all know, did we talk about this story before? No, I think we did in the meditation. The Princess and the Pea, for those of you who don't know, it's the story of a young man who's coming of age, and I think it's his grandmother and his aunt. She's interviewing princesses. He's a prince. She's interviewing princesses to be his wife. And so they stack 100 mattresses on top of each other, and they put one pea at the bottom. And the aunt says, now, when a woman comes in, she can feel that pea. She's so sensitive that she's worthy to be your wife. So princesses come in and out, and they sleep, and they come in, and would come in the morning, and the aunt says, how did you sleep? Oh, I slept great, it was wonderful, so comfortable. Dismiss her. Next one comes in, says the same thing. They dismiss princess after princess after princess. And finally, a princess comes in, and the next morning after the night's sleep, she comes in and she says, oh, that was horrible. I couldn't sleep at all. I'm all black and blue. There was something in the mattress. So she was that sensitive that she could feel the pea under 100 mattresses. And that's the type of sensitivity we want to allow in our body when we do this type of resting. So we want to allow ourselves to feel all of the peas. Not to villainify anything, to feel everything in the body. Okay? Oh, wait. Yeah. Good. Be a good
So
time.
if we allow ourselves to feel everything, is there a possibility that we might end up crying or whatever,
Sure.
angry, shouting?
Well, sadness. arises, anger arises, all kinds of emotional things that we have held away from. Or fear. Fear arises. That's okay.
There's
Yeah.
a tissue box there.
Yeah, I'll bring it over. We'll be here. It would. I remember one retreat I went on where we were working with emotions, the Zendo. The teacher said, a Zendo that's not built from the salt of tears isn't worth its weight. And I really, that phrase always stuck with me.
Actually, Chris also said during the retreat, he said that you haven't led a silent retreat where people didn't cry.
Yeah, it's usual. It's common because we're
He's had it for often.
when
At the end of the private, in a session we had free session, free, sounds weird, non-guided session. But the gong went and we stopped meditating and I just carried on with the drawing with it for quite a while. I don't know, I wanted to stop, but I didn't
Why?
want to,
no reason to. That crying is what the human body does with sadness. It's natural.
Yeah, if you purposely stop it, that's repressing.
Yeah, that's right.
But it was, the crying was happy and sad. Is that possible?
Yeah, absolutely.
It's a bit confusing.
Absolutely.
It's like I'm so sad, I'm happy, I'm crying. Got messy insides.
Yeah. Well, it's very rare that emotion just arises just in that pure emotion. There's usually other emotions that come with it.
Wish I was good enough to know the origin of some ways. Where it comes from, why,
The what?
why the origin, why you.
Okay, well, I'm glad you mentioned that, and I'll talk about this while I guide too. But in this practice, we don't need to analyze anything because that's just more thought. And actually, that analysis takes us out of the experience. It's one step removed from the sensations of the emotion.
I'm not sure why, but not analyzing it made me feel it deeper.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
not thinking about why I'm crying made me cry more.
Absolutely.
But
But you had the joy there, but you allowed yourself to feel the joy at the same time. And that brings me to that point. You feel it more, but it bothers you less. That's that opening. That's that opening. And that's that resting quality allows for that. It allows us to feel very deeply, but what would have been painful or frightening no longer carries that quality because we cultivated that resting. That's where we're heading. Okay. Any other questions just about the technique? I'll be guiding for almost the whole thing. We'll start with the breath. Touch in with areas of the body. I won't do a full body scanning. If you've been with me before, we may have had a full body scanning. I don't think we've done that, but it's okay. We'll go through the body, experiencing the body as deeply as we can. How long is the practice? Not sure. 15 or 20 minutes maybe. It won't be too long. Are we running low on time?
No, I'm just curious.
Okay. Yeah, I'm gonna play to the room. In musician lingo.
When we spoke about the hands, is that metaphorical or just the hands, the position of the hands?
However you're comfortable. Yeah.
Is that okay?
Whatever. Yeah, there's no right or wrong way posture. In fact, you can even lay down if you're not going to fall asleep.
Okay.
You can. Yeah. Okay. However you're comfortable. Yeah. Don't, if you're in danger of falling asleep, sit up. Seriously.
I won't fall asleep.
I know you're good at navigating that. I can see that. But I don't want to hear any snoring.
I don't think I'll fall asleep.
It's the only thing that's not
You
allowed.
can lean under your back, so it's very uncomfortable when you both fall asleep.
Okay, so we're ready to jump in the water. hear one chime after 10 seconds, which starts the practice. And 3 chimes at the end of the practice. So, questions or comments? Did anyone fall asleep? Good.
And so overwhelmed.
Overwhelmed.
The longer, the middle of it, I felt my body just was so heavy.
So you had this physical sensation of heaviness, yeah. And did that disturb your resting, or was there an emotion tied to that heaviness?
For a while, I felt like I was struggling to stress. Just stress, don't put too much thought into the sensations. So there was that. I was forcing myself to rest, and it's like, just let it go. But the more I accepted the heaviness and everything, it was heavier. And the more I felt everything in my body.
So there was that experience of the sensation growing stronger, but you were more accepting. So it goes back to that. More vivid, but bothers you less. If I may, I don't want to put words into your mouth, but that's what it sounded like you were pointing at. There's no wrong or right here. Just want to share the experience, and I can help maybe interpret it a little bit.
Chris, if you say in your inhalation, like it comes from top to bottom, from the crown, and then when you exhale, where would it go? Like
Well,
if you feel from the top and it goes all the way down, and then that's it.
You can do the reverse.
Reverse.
Maybe, yeah, that's fine too. So, but yeah, in this practice, it's just resting. So there's no wrong way or right way. It's just resting. It's really, I like to think of this practice as a radical embrace of the present moment. Everyone's still resting. That's good.
The first time I attended the meditation, mindfulness meditation, there's this guy who's there was one guy who said that, did you lower your voice? Like something popped into his ear. You remember that? There was the first day of the mindfulness meditation, there was a guy who said that, did you lower your voice?
Oh, did I
Chris?"
lower it? Yeah.
He asked that and said, I'm not sure, but if I lowered, it wasn't intentional. He said, because something went ballistic on his
He was
ear.
hearing something else.
And I experienced that today.
All right.
Yeah.
Like what was the experience?
It was, it feels like, when you're up in the air.
Yeah. Like so the ear is clogged.
Clogged, yeah, like when you're
equalize?
traveling, yeah, and then your ear
It
gets
pops.
clogged.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then but then it just
It pops.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah. You never know what's going to come up when you rest that deeply. It could be a lot, or it could be unusual, or it could be very little. Some people have very different experiences, so it runs the spectrum. sometimes very powerful things happen, and sometimes not so much. You know, but it's all about cultivating that resting quality. There's no, again, no wrong and right. You seem perplexed.
Does when you eat have an influence on your meditation session? Not really.
I'm sorry?
When you eat,
When you eat?
does eating have an influence on it?
I find that it just you can fall asleep easier on a full stomach when you meditate. But other than that, it doesn't really affect my practice. I know there are some practices. When I was with Ananda Marga in particular, they emphasized not eating for like a couple hours before meditation. For me, I meditate, I eat and go meditate, it doesn't matter. So for me personally, I haven't felt any effect. But there are some schools that emphasize meditating on a lighter stomach than an empty stomach. Yeah. What did you experience?
I just felt very aware of processing food. I ate something just
You were
before it was in the body scan.
Uh-huh.
It was very present for me. It's
In the digestion
something that's
process.
working there.
Uh-huh.
Not good or bad or anything, but it is very, it was not there with previous meditations, but it's more limited this time around.
Yeah. It could have been any number of things. I mean, I was emphasizing the abdomen quite a bit because that is a common storehouse for emotional material that we hold on to. And so I went through the abdomen a couple of times, 3 or 4 times probably. And so just trying to allow that area to breathe. It's a very tight area for a lot of people. So maybe that was the reason it was triggering some sensations there. Maybe just my voice saying, go to the abdomen, was bringing your awareness to the digestion process that was already there. Or it could have been other things as well that we were carrying that shifted around. So only you can say for sure.
Sort of get better, maybe that's not the right word, but become aware of with each scan what's different to previous scans.
Is that what's happening?
Whether there's something as I process, whether there's something that feels different than
Uh-huh.
previous. Or maybe it's because I'm used to sitting in exactly the same position every time.
Oh, right. So now you're feeling more vividly areas of the body that you weren't using.
Yes,
Or-
it just feels different.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh. Yeah. Well, there again is that very constant urge to compare. It's with everyone. It's not you. I'm not calling you out. I'm just bringing it up because we all do. We all have. Certainly plagued my practice for many years in the beginning. You know, sometimes it comes up now, not so much. But we don't want to fall into that comparing of yesterday's practice to today's practice. In anyone. Always come fresh. In the Zen school they say, beginner's mind. Come to it with beginner's mind. It's challenging, I know. Yeah.
So how you give meaning to something is it often in comparison.
Mhm. Yeah, but then that gives rise to all kinds of pitfalls in the practice. We've talked about that, but just briefly I can touch on it. At risk of trying your patience. I don't want to do that, but if we compare practices from yesterday's practice or last week's practice to today's practice, we trap the practice in a box. We're always wanting it to conform to a certain experience. Then the practice can't grow or unfold in a natural way. So we sometimes, and pretty often actually, we achieve that goal, that box that we put it in. We manage to put that meditation practice in that box, but then it never comes to fruition. It never bears fruit the way a meditation practice can do. So just allowing it, coming to it fresh every day, every time you practice. If you're not doing daily, every time you practice, just coming to it fresh. Sorry.
No, but it's like it's in the present moment, like not like in future or something that like, you see, like exactly your position, but it's like,
Sure.
but you was related for some cards. I don't know, it's like was connected. Yeah. I don't remember
Some car?
Card.
Oh.
Yeah, I don't know, but I tried to remember it.
Oh.
But yeah, and but it's more. It's not about. It's like it's just not about. It's because it's about me. But it's like more about also talking about ourselves, like trying to control, or do you need to feel comfortable or not feel comfortable, release, the rest, but also we need to just give others to be and do their stuff.
Yeah.
It's just you cannot control it.
Yeah. Absolutely. So there, if I may, there was this sense of allowing, it sounds like.
Yeah, just again, it's like to happen things like to others to react the way they react.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah. Yeah. So being able to rest in another person's reaction, right? If I may, again, paraphrase.
Yeah, no, but it's like more. It was very, very too many like faces at these cats.
So there wasn't a lot of resting for you, or was there?
It was fine.
Right. Just.
I was just watching.
Uh,
Yeah.
yeah. Good. Great.
Watching.
That is. Yeah.
Just one thing, I would just try to remember the card. That's all.
Uh-huh.
About you. I know it is like it's. I will need to let it go, but I just don't remember it.
Yeah.
Is it
Yeah.
tired?
It was 7, number 7, but I think it was just regular deck.
Regular.
Yeah,
Hmm.
and it was like.
I'll be on the lookout for sevens.
Huh?
I'll be on the lookout for sevens in the next couple of days.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I know it is not like not right, but yeah, I just okay, I didn't remember.
Well, it's not wrong or right. Yeah, it's just a part of the practice. You come out of the resting and you go back to the resting. It's just the flow. But yeah, that sense of allowing is a way of resting. Just allowing, like you say, allowing other people to have their reactions. And you're just allowing that. That's good. Because that unplugs that suffering. If somebody starts yelling at you because they're angry and you say, instead of yelling back, you say, oh, I see you're really upset. Can I help you? Then that's that allowing. So you've unplugged the possibility of conflict. That's beautiful. It's really the point, if I may, if there is a point. That's, I think, really one of the benefits of this type of practice, unplugging from that suffering.
I think also your voice helps thoughts, or something, it's just okay, thinking.
Let that go and come back. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's very helpful for me. Yeah. Thank you.
So Chris, it is actually normal to not even be aware that you're actually already thinking. Like perhaps probably you ran already for 6 seconds. On the 6th second, oh yeah, I was thinking.
That's absolutely normal.
Yeah.
That's totally normal. Yeah. Whenever you recognize it, just come back. That's it. Yeah. Or ask yourself in this practice, can I rest? Can I rest with this thought? You know, but the idea is that we're resting so deeply that we don't push any thoughts away. So that's why when you say thinking like that, you're looking down at the thought. The thought kind of breaks up or dissolves on its own. So again, maintaining that resting quality of the thoughts. Sure.
There's also involuntary movement.
I get that too sometimes.
What's happening? Like I'm shaking. Something is like, yeah. But I'm not moving it. It's like, I don't know how to explain. But
Spasm. It's a spasm.
Yeah.
Or a twitch, yeah. I get that too sometimes when I do this practice. Just things moving around.
Yeah.
We're so not used to resting so deeply, you know. So when we allow that to happen, things shift. It's normal. Any other questions or comments before we wrap up?
How this one different from the Monday? What we did for Monday?
The Monday's practice is actually a practice of looking at the mind. Now, what I've done is combined a practice in Tibet. Monday's practice is a combination of this practice and another practice, which one practice is just looking at the mind, and the other practice is resting, the one we did tonight. So I've combined them together into one practice because I think they work really well together. Because the deeper we can allow ourselves to rest, the more we can feel, the more we allow ourselves to feel. And that's why I think that resting quality is so important when we're looking at our mind. And that's also looking at the heart. Looking at the mind or looking at the heart, it's the same thing in this practice. So if we're resting and some powerful emotion arises or distressful thought, it doesn't have to be a negative emotion, it could be bliss or joy. Some people have a hard time experiencing those emotions too. Any powerful feeling of happiness, some people feel like, oh, I don't deserve that, so they push that away. So sometimes that can come up. But the deeper we can rest, it's like this tripod. It's holding this camera at rest. That's what the resting in the body does. It allows us to be stable and firm and strong, but it rests at the same time. So then when emotions come up, we don't lose our equanimity. We maintain that resting quality and we can experience whatever comes up. So that's why I combine the two practices, because they really work well together in my experience. So that's how they differ. Monday is more about looking, looking at the body. I guess on Monday we went through to the sounds. So, and then when thoughts arise, looking at the thoughts, letting them go. Thoughts arise, looking at the thoughts, letting them go. So that's the looking at the mind right there. That looking practice goes deeper, into deeper stages. I don't know if we talked about that on Monday, but eventually you go to a deeper stage in the meditation where you're actually looking directly at the heart itself or at the mind itself. That takes quite a bit of practice, so I don't do that in an introductory session because it takes time to cultivate that. I kind of touched on that tonight. When we were resting towards the end of the practice, I said, look at this resting, rest in the present moment, look at the resting. That's an attempt to turn your awareness inward to the experience that you're having. That's really only possible when we can rest very deeply, because otherwise we look inside and we don't see anything, but we're so used to being something, an ego. So when we look inside, we don't see anything. Oftentimes we get trapped in thoughts like, what is he talking about? What do you mean? But any kind of thought trying to make logic out of the experience. Logic doesn't help in this experience because we're trying to transcend our thoughts. That's a long way to answer that question. Sorry. Did that answer your question then?
Yeah.
Okay.